Power Talk, brought to you by ABB. Power and productivity for a better world.
Coal, it's one of the hot potatoes of the power generation business. Is King Coal on its way out, or is it back in fashion? Now, for years it's been seen as one of the cheapest ways to create electricity. Given the shortage of power, it's back in fashion again. South Africa is building two new huge coal-fired power stations at Medupi and Kusile, the first of their kind for more than 30 years. On the other hand, organisations like Greenpeace Africa have labelled coal a filthy environment destroyer and a fuel of the past. Is King Coal back in fashion, or is this the end of the road? I'm Chris Bishop, and over the next 30 minutes, my guests and I will be analysing the future of coal. We'll be bringing you comments about coal from an influential policymaker, Dipuo Peters, South Africa's Minister of Energy, plus a load of controversy, literally from Greenpeace Africa. It's a jam-packed show, but first with the news, it's PowerPoints.
The United States power grid will rely more on renewable energy and natural gas by 2035. Renewable energy share of US power production is expected to increase from 10% to 14% over the next quarter century, while natural gas will increase from 23% to 25%. Coal will continue to dominate, however, but should drop to 43% by 2035. The United Kingdom's designs for an increase in wind turbine-produced energy should steam ahead even after the government reviews its financial support in all sectors. According to an investment bank survey and research, financial support for onshore and offshore wind will continue and survive the review. The African Development Bank has hinted that it plans to invest $3.5 billion into Africa's energy sector in the next 3 years. More than a third of the amount will go to renewable energy. This will provide a huge boost to more than 600 million Africans without access to modern energy. Power utility Eskom CEO Brian Dames has assured South Africans that the energy giant can meet peak demand this winter season. They project a peak demand at 37,500 megawatts. The peak times are between 5 and 8 p.m. And Eskom believes that if they focus on those 3 hours, they can make a significant difference to the country's sometimes shaky power supply. Staying with Eskom, they have been warned by Greenpeace Africa that a repeat of the coal debacle is on the horizon if the energy giant does not shift its focus away from coal as their main source of energy and invest more heavily in renewable energy sources. Greenpeace Africa activists dumped 5 tons of coal outside Eskom's head offices in Megawatt Park in Sandton.
Let's take a closer look at the Greenpeace Africa story. The environmental campaigners decided to dump their concerns at the doorstep of Africa's biggest power generator, Eskom. The argument over whether or not to use coal to generate power was taken to a new level when Greenpeace Africa dumped 5 tons of coal at Eskom's doorstep at its Megawatt Park headquarters near Johannesburg. CNBC Africa followed up the story and spoke to Greenpeace Africa Campaigns Director Olivia Langhoff.
Greenpeace is very concerned about the continuous dependency on coal in the future for South Africa and the dependency and the coal addiction from Eskom. We have tried to engage with Eskom before our action on Monday, which didn't result in anything, so we thought we demonstrate the problems of coal, that coal kills, and to ask Eskom to clean up their act. In addition, water sources are being polluted, our air is being polluted, and coal is a technology of the past. It's an energy of the past. So why continuously invest in a technology of the past? We should invest in the future, and that is renewables.
But surely cutting emissions begins at home.
Greenpeace internationally, as a global organization, we have very strict policies when it comes to traveling, meeting venues, and we are very much working on becoming as efficient as possible, looking at the options, of course, in the countries we are working on what is state-of-the-art technology as well. In South Africa, we are working on being as efficient as possible and working on greening our office within the next 2 years.
It's a dispute over whether to use coal to generate power that's likely to run and run. Well, there you have it. We did ask Eskom to come and comment on this programme, but unfortunately they said they couldn't make it. But our guests in the studio could make it. We've got Paul Miller here, CEO of Keaton Energy, a junior coal miner, very much in touch with what's going on in the business here. And also have James Stein of Fin24, a journalist and also a man, a keen watcher of what's happening in coal. Just a comment there from you both. I mean, this is a very crude, the Greenpeace story, argument about coal, whether it should be used. What do you think the arguments are? How strong are they both sides?
To me, it's not about whether it should be used or shouldn't be used. The fact is we are using it and we will have to use it for the next 20 to 30 years. And quite frankly, that's my investment horizon and what we look at. Kusile and Medupi are fait accompli. They are being built, the money's been raised, they're being put in place just to service our existing fleet of coal-fired power stations, and the 2 new ones will require significant expansion and investment in our coal industry.
James, coming to you, what do you think? Do you think that's likely to put any ripples in the industry? I mean, 5 tons of coal being dumped. You don't think so? What do you think?
I'm sorry, but Greenpeace, they're very idealistic, and I like what they stand for, but in this case, I think they've got a problem. Because, you know, coal is an old technology, but South Africa is a developing country with a massive resource of coal. So now we're stuck. We need to. Greenpeace has never been able to completely answer the question of baseload power. So as a developing economy, we need a lot of baseload power, and renewable power is just still too expensive. So we have coal. So I don't know. In my opinion, coal is still part of our energy future.
Okay, now this show is all about where coal fits into power generation. And let's just hear now briefly from one of the policy makers when it comes to energy in South Africa, the Minister Dipuo Peters.
We need coal, and in the new plan, coal will be coming in at about 15%. But we also say we are not reckless as a country and as a government, because we have the long-term mitigation scenario. The percentages that we have attached to these energy carriers is informed by our long-term mitigation scenario, that 34% and the 42% by 2035. So it means as a country, we say we need to also invest in making sure that we can get clean coal. If we get the underground coal gasification technology that is being tested now, proven, we can increase the coal component, because it would mean that the coal is clean. And it would then say to those people in the rural areas, those people in the squatter camps, those industries that wants to invest in South Africa, that you are going to have security of supply. Because we need to make sure that the lights go on, machinery keeps running, and everybody have got access.
South Africa's Minister of Energy there, Dipuo Peters. What's your reaction to that?
No, I agree. I think the thing we must focus on here is South Africa needs to double its amount of generating capacity. Whether coal is 50% or 60% or 70% of that, it's going to be a very significant portion of our future future energy generation. It's here to stay. I think we all would like renewables. Nobody's arguing against renewables, and we would like them to be an increasing proportion of the total mix. But in actual fact, the brute quantum of coal-fired power generation in South Africa will increase even while its percentage of the total decreases.
Now, were you reassured there, James, by the words of the Minister?
Yeah, yes and no. As Paul says, renewables, nobody's against them. But like 2012, next year is the year of universal access. Government wants to ensure that everybody in the country has access to electricity. Whenever there's protests, actions, people are protesting about basic things, electricity, water. But in a developing country, it's too expensive to give them electricity that is based on renewable power sources. That's just my opinion. And coal I think comes in around 20 to 30 cents per kilowatt to generate power. Renewable energy tariffs that people will be getting paid for wind or solar is in excess of R1.50 per kilowatt hour. The difference is just too large to look at renewables to provide the mass bulk of our power. So I'm afraid coal is still very much in our future.
So how do you see the future, Paul? I mean, we'll talk a bit more about this in the second half about world demand for coal, but Europe is trying to phase it out. And meanwhile, we've got Africa here that's actually trying to hang on to it as a way to keep the lights on.
Well, it's not only about a way to keep the lights on. I think Greenpeace is missing the point a little. Between 2 and 4 million tons of poor quality, high sulfur coal is burnt in braziers, in townships, in people's homes, outside their homes for household heating. It's burnt enormously inefficiently. There are no chimneys, it's not a boiler, it produces particulates, it hangs over in the temperature inversion times in winter over our townships. We have this fog of smoke that must be impacting on people's health directly. That's an area to direct your energy at, your activism at. If we could reduce the amount of poor quality coal burnt in people's homes, it would be a great improvement on overall air quality in our townships, for example. Where's the 5 tons of coal being dumped at the entry to Soweto to stop the coal trucks taking low quality coal nuts into the township? I think that's a question that can be answered, and that's where some activism is required. And I think the Minister of Health perhaps should pay some attention to that issue. From an international perspective, we are seeing coal demand reducing out of Europe, but they've also made some key decisions about how much they want to be dependent on nuclear in the future. So I think they've got a baseload power problem coming in the next 20 to 30 years.
And just very briefly, James, where do you see coal fitting in the future in power generation in Africa?
I think there's a very big need for coal still in Africa. I think in general in developing countries, in the BRICS, in India, there's a massive demand for coal, South African coal. They take everything they can get from South Africa and they want even more. And so coming back to the very fact that coal is cheap, it's a proven technology, and I don't see it disappearing very quickly. Just also touching on the Greenpeace thing, activism, yes, be active, but go to Eskom and ensure that they are building their coal power stations as efficient and as green as possible. But to say that shut down coal power stations, I just don't see that as part of the solution.
Okay, James, hold that thought there. We're going to talk more in the second half about the world market for coal for power generation, but stay with us. We'll see you on the other side.